How do you sell your business? Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders who make life better, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, the actuary at the Taxevity Insurance Advisory, and when I'm not doing interviews, I help people understand how insurance can transfer their financial risks. Our guest today is Frank Tralli. Welcome, Frank.
Pramod, thank you.
What do you do when you're not being interviewed?
Well, I run Aries Advisory Group Limited. It's a boutique corporate finance advisory firm based out of Toronto. We help our clients with all of their corporate finance issues, from refinancing or financing their business valuations, mergers and acquisitions, anything that you need from a corporate finance perspective, that's what we do. Prior to that, I worked as CFO and VP Finance for a number of different private companies, but our business has been around for 10 years now. We're in our 10th year, and we're hoping to be around for a lot longer.
Congratulations. 10 years is quite a success for a small business.
Yeah, great.
I gather you're not ready to sell your business just yet, but
yet.
You help other people selling theirs.
I do. We do, yeah.
From what I understand, there's a process. What are the sort of things that a business would do prior to selling?
Well, in a perfect world, if a business owner wants to sell his business, he would plan in advance of doing so, ideally at least 5 years prior to doing it.
5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a lot to do. What you want to do is you want to maximize the value. And the way to do that is through a number of different ways, but if it's just yourself and you have all the knowledge, that's a problem. So you want to try and transfer the knowledge of your business to your management team so that a potential buyer will look at your business and say, okay, it's not just you.
Okay.
Because if it's just you and you're hit by the proverbial bus, we got a problem. Because all of a sudden now, there is no value in the company. It's gone. So you want to try and do your best to transfer that knowledge, and that takes time. You just can't do that immediately. You want to do your best to try and not be reliant on just one customer. So customer concentration is an issue, because a buyer won't want to pay for business if all of your eggs are in one basket.
Okay, is there a target for how much business should come from one customer?
Well, anything more than 20% is going to be a red flag for a potential buyer, because if after they sell the business to that buyer, and then for whatever reason that customer decides they don't like the new owners and they decide to leave, that's going to be a problem. So if I'm a potential buyer, I'm going to say I have a problem paying more for your business if that customer leaves. So you want to try and spread out the revenues as much as you can to as many customers as you can in order to avoid that risk.
Okay.
And another important thing to consider is making sure your earnings quality is very strong.
What does that mean?
Well, making sure that your accounting policies are all conservative and consistent, so your revenue recognition policies are consistent and you're not recognizing revenue too quickly. Your depreciation policies with respect to your fixed assets are reasonable, so that you're not showing assets that are worth more than they really are. Making sure that your statements are reviewed by an external accountant. Ideally, they would be audited, but auditing statements is very expensive and it's not usually cost effective. So as a minimum, you'd want your statements to be reviewed each year by an external accountant. Making sure you have strong internal controls to prevent any sort of fraud from your employees. Those are the types of things that potential buyers will want to make sure that you have.
Okay, starting 5 years ago is a really good idea, or waiting 5 years is a good idea too, but not everyone has that kind of patience. So for instance, if I wanted to sell my business, so I woke up this morning and I say, I want to sell my business, realistically, what's the minimum length of time before I'd be able to do that?
Well, it all depends on your goals and objectives, because there's a different process depending on what your goals and objectives are. If your goal is to maximize the proceeds and you don't care who you sell to, then there's one method of doing it, and that's usually by way of a controlled auction. And if you do that, that process will take anywhere from 6 months to a year, because you're going to need time to market the business, put together a marketing package, and then give potential buyers time to do their due diligence. So that'll take some time.
Okay.
If you're more concerned about the legacy of the business and you want to try and minimize employee terminations, and you may have an idea of 1 or 2 potential buyers who you think would be a good fit for the company, then it would take less time, because we can go and act on your behalf and approach these folks and say, Okay, do you want to buy this business? So you've already identified the buyer, and so you've kind of circumvented the whole marketing process. And now it's just a matter of trying to agree on a price, do some due diligence, and hopefully execute a transaction. So that might take, say, 3 months, 4 months.
Okay, so there are ways to do the transactions more quickly, but the best results will take longer.
They will, because now if you've only targeted 1 or 2 potential buyers, in theory, your price probably won't be as high as if you decide to have a controlled auction, because you'll have more buyers coming to the table, and that'll increase demand and hopefully increase your price.
Okay, there's preparation that a company needs to do. Then during the selling process, what should they be looking at there?
Well, I think it's always important to hire an outside advisor, because they can give you a sober second look in terms of what the value of your company is. You may think it's worth more than it really is, and an outside advisor will give you a sober second look and a reality check as to what your company is worth.
Okay, but how does the outside advisor do that? Is it because they've done so many transactions, or they have a process of getting quotes, or how does that happen?
You're right in that they have a lot of experience. They know what valuations of similar businesses are. They can look at comparables. And so they have an idea of what your business is worth when they compare it to other sales of similar businesses. So they have experience there. They also will focus on providing you advice as far as what to sell, whether you sell shares or whether you sell assets. If you are a seller, in most cases you'll want to sell shares because there's tax advantages to doing that.
Okay. And then the buyer probably doesn't feel the same way about shares.
No, the buyer would prefer to buy assets, because if they buy shares, there's liabilities that come along with the shares. And in some cases, they may not want to deal with those liabilities. So they prefer to sell assets. And so if a seller would prefer to sell shares and a buyer would prefer to buy assets, there's a bit of an issue there, and there's ways to circumvent it and mitigate the issues. But ultimately, it is a negotiation point that has to be dealt with.
Okay, I'm guessing that in a lot of cases, the buyer wants more than the seller is willing to pay. Are there any situations where the buyer gets less than maybe they could?
Well, in the situation where they need to sell quickly, and they haven't planned properly, and they pick up the phone and they call their closest competitor, and they haven't had time to market the company properly. If they're in a rush and they circumvent the whole marketing process, or they don't hire an advisor to give them an idea of what else is out there as far as potential buyers, then there is a chance that they're going to leave some money on the table. So it's always important to try and plan and give yourself some time to know exactly what it is out there, rather than just going ahead and picking up the phone and calling your competitor and saying, I want to sell to you, because then you're also in a position of weakness.
Yeah, I'm thinking calling a competitor would be really tough, because then the competitor is saying that your business is garbage, it's not worth anything.
That's exactly it.
And I have to investigate all your files and get your intellectual property. And the other way would be that you're saying how great it is, et cetera. So that just looks confrontational.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be in. You're in a position of weakness, and they're going to usually do their best to grind you on the price for sure. So.
Okay. And so now you've done the sale, it's completed. What sort of things take place afterwards?
Well, you should make sure you have a tax advisor to assist you with the tax planning, because hopefully you'll have some money that you'll need to invest, and you'll want to do that on a tax advantageous basis.
Because I'm guessing the buyers typically pay a lump sum to the seller?
Well,
or the seller gets a lump sum?
In a perfect world, they'd get all of it. The buyer may want to hold back some money for contingent liabilities. They may say, okay, we're going to give you 50% or 75% of the proceeds, and the balance will sit in escrow with the lawyer for 6 months to a year, until we make sure that everything we said, everything you said was true. If there are any contingent liabilities or representations and warranties that you've made that are no longer true, and something comes to light, they'll take some of that money and they'll apply it against the liability.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The second thing is, in most cases, the seller will need to stick around for a period of time, because there needs to be a knowledge transfer from the seller to the new owners, and they'll want that owner to stick around and act as an employee and manage the business on their behalf.
Typically, how long would that take?
Anywhere from 1 to 5 years.
Oh, it can be that long?
It can be that long.
Okay.
I mean, I think 3 is probably the more average of time, but it may be as short as 1 and maybe as long as 5.
Okay.
And so the key that the seller needs to think about is to get in the mindset that he's no longer calling the shots, and that's a big challenge.
Oh, right. They were the boss. Now they're not.
Exactly. So now they're an employee. They can't go and golf on Fridays whenever they want to. They got to stick around. So that is usually a big challenge, because they've been the boss for how many years they run the business, and now all of a sudden they're no longer the boss, and they're answering to somebody. So that's a mindset change that everyone needs to be very comfortable with. And then the last thing is, once that employment agreement is over and they're free to leave, there's probably going to be a non-competition clause. So they won't be allowed to work in the same or similar business for a period of time.
Typically, how long would that period be?
Again, it varies, but I would think a minimum would be a year, and that can go as long as, say, 2 to 3 years.
Oh, I see.
So the seller needs to think about what the heck they're going to do with their time once their employment agreement ends, and they have all this money that they're sitting on, and they can't do the same thing that they've been doing since they've owned the business. So that's another challenge in their situation. You can't golf every day. You'll get bored.
Then golf becomes a job.
Exactly. So you have to do something with your life, and you have to do something with the money that you have, and it's going to have to be in a different business. So there's a lot of different things, so you got to get in that mindset and think about what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. What's your main message for our viewers today?
Well, I think in a perfect world, you do your best to plan ahead of time. So if you have 5 years, you should think about selling your business 5 years prior to when you're going to actually do it. Mm-hmm. And you do all the things we've talked about, so that you get the business in a sale-ready position, and so you can optimize the proceeds if that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. The second thing is to get outside help, because an outside advisor will give you a sober second look. They'll probably give you a little bit of a reality check in terms of what your business is worth. And if you have time, you hire that person 5 years prior to when you want to sell the business, and they can help you optimize your business valuation through that period.
Right, and you're able to help clients as the outside advisor.
Absolutely. We'd be more than happy to help folks who are thinking about selling their business. We can help them put together a plan in terms of how they would go about trying to optimize their business during that period, and then when it comes time to sell, we'll be more than happy to help them with their sales process.
What's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, we have a website. It's www.ariesag.com, and all of our contact information is on the website. In addition, we publish a quarterly newsletter on various corporate finance topics, from mergers and acquisitions to how to sell your business to refinancing your business. And if you want to sign up for that to be on the distribution list, you can do that on our homepage, and past issues are on our website as well.
Yeah, and I've been a subscriber for years, and I can assure viewers that the content is excellent.
Well, thank you, Pramod.
Thanks for dropping by, Frank.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?